later. So we are recording now. Thank you to everyone for joining us today on AFP Palm Beach County's June events. Today we are focusing on career growth and professional development and all the various ways we can look at that, various certifications, various classes. Today we are joined by an esteemed panel. First, and I'm going to give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to let our panelists say a little bit more about themselves once we're done doing our brief introductions. Vicki Pugh, and the letters after her name, because everyone's got to have letters. She is a CFRE, and she's a CAP. And I'll let her explain a little bit more about what that is. She's a vice president for philanthropic giving at the Community Foundation for Palm Beach and Martin counties. She connects donors to philanthropic causes that are passionate about facilitating legacy and planned gifts and establishing charitable funds. Hi, Vicki. Our next panelist is Jo Miller, and the letters after her name are GPC CSMS, and I'm going to once again let her explain what that is. Jo is the managing director and founder of Smarty Grants, professional development firm that includes Grant Chat Community. She is CEO and principal of J. Miller & Associates, a national grant consulting firm in Minnesota. So hi, Jo. And our last panelist is Dennis Stefanacci, and the letters after his name are ACFRE and FAFP. Is that correct, Dennis? Got that right?
Yes, awesome. Correct.
And you need to update your website with those credentials, Dennis. Dennis is the founder and principal of Dennis Stefanacci & Associates, a consulting firm providing services in the area of external relations with special emphasis in the development and implementation of strategic and comprehensive development and communication plans, board development, capital campaigns, and major and planned programs. So welcome to our panelists.
Good to be here.
So let's just start off and you know, round robin style. Vicki, if you could explain those letters after your name, CAP. I'm sure a lot of our people on the call today have heard of CFRE, which is the Certified Fundraising Executive. CFRE is a completely separate organization than the Association of Fundraising Professionals. While a lot of people might associate the two together, they are autonomous. Vicki, what is CAP?
Well, if I could, Josh, I do want to say something about the CFRE because it was
absolutely.
around. CFRE was around in the days when there was really very few advanced programs for fundraising professionals. There were probably no degree programs at the bachelor level, maybe one or two across the country in master's level. So the CFRE became a very important credential to show a fundraiser's experience and achievements. So I think the CFRE still remains very widely recognized, even more recognized than ever before. And frankly, I didn't get my CFRE until about 8 years ago. So I was later in my career when I did it. I don't know if there's a perfect time, but I do think the CFRE credential is still very relevant today. So I'll talk a little bit about CAP. I don't know if there's anybody else on the call who has the CAP. I think Carl has the CAP certification. It stands for Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy. It's a program that consists of 3 different courses that are considered 3 credit hour courses at the master's degree level. Administered through the American College in Boston. Once upon a time, we had a cohort in West Palm Beach that met. There were 3 or 4 cohorts that went together through the program. It's all online, but we did have some in-person meetings to talk about the learning and to share a little bit about our experiences and network. But now it's all online. There's not a cohort locally anymore. But I'll tell you, it's one of the most influential and beneficial things I've done because it really melds the world of fundraising and planned giving and financial planning together. We learned a lot about family philanthropy in the course, how we can help guide donors to meaningful philanthropic opportunities. We learned about some tax law. We learned how some of those planned giving vehicles and tools like charitable gift annuities and charitable remainder trust, charitable remainder unit trust, etc., how all those work. So very, very beneficial in my career learning. I have a colleague here at the Community Foundation, Katie Erickson, which many of you know, unless you're from out of town, who also has the CAP designation, and then we have another person on our staff going through it. So happy to answer questions if anybody has questions about that.
Now I'm unmuted. We're going to come back because I want to talk a little bit more about higher education continued growth and professional development, which you'll speak to in a few minutes. But let's jump over to Joe. Joe, give us a little bit more background about yourself and then also the role that you've played with the GPC and what the GPC is.
Sure, sure. So I've been in the world of grants for about 25 years. As Josh mentioned, I do have a training professional development organization called Smarty Grants, and then I also work as a consultant in and around grants, so a lot of strategic planning and those kinds of things beyond grant writing. I think writing for grant professionals is about this much of our job. And that's another reason, just like Vicki said about the CFRE, that the GPC, it's the Grant Professional Certification, it's through the Grant Professional Certification Institute. Last year, they finally achieved their accreditation. It takes about 10 years or more to get that, and so they finally achieved that for the certification. Certification has been around, again, over 10 years. And it's there to show the, again, similar to what Vicki said, it's for the grant professionals show their skills, their competencies, and their accomplishments. And you need to have experience in the field before you can earn your GPC and sit for the exam. So I am very proud to have my GPC. I too got it a little later in my career. 2011, I think, is when I received my GPC or earned my GPC. I also have served on the board of the Grant Professionals Association. And the Grant Professionals Association is the GPCI, the Institute, and the GPA are, the GPA was started to start the Institute. The association was started to start the Institute. And although they are kind of sister organizations, they are independent of each other. In the Grant Professionals Association, I am the past president, just rolled off the board this last year. I'm smiling because, whew, it's great to serve on a board. It's great to serve on a national organization at that level and to have the kind of growth. We've had tremendous growth in the last few years, but it's also great to be able to focus on other things. So I'm very proud of my service to the Grant Professionals Association, and I definitely recommend it if you are part of the grant world, which I know several of you are. I know Dave Tinker is a leader in his chapter in the Grant Professionals Association in the DC chapter. And so I'm really, really excited to be here today. If you have any other questions about the GPC or the GPCI, let me know. The other credential, did you want me to talk about that one, Josh? Okay. The social media strategist, that's what the SMS is. And it's through the National Institute of Social Media. And quite a while back, I thought that the communication element and the interaction that we had with a lot of our communities, and as we were developing our grant programs and grant strategies, that social media was going to become a big part of how we design programs, how we communicate, especially in the health behavior sphere. So I was interested in it. I received the certification and have really, of course, that's grown considerably over the years. So I got that around the same time I got my GPC.
And a little plug for that, I too actually have SMS after my credentials. After Joe's urging, I went through the program, and I too am a certified social media strategist. And I think what's important to know is that, we're talking about CAP, we're talking about CFRE, Dennis is going to talk about ACFRE, we're speaking about grant. There are so many different programs for your niche in fundraising and nonprofit leadership that are out there that you might not even know about. I had no idea that I could get certified to become a social media strategist, but it was at a interaction at the AFP International Conference a couple of years ago that Joe said, hey, you should check out this program. And because Joe and I are friends, I said, all right, well, let me see what it's all about. And, for for the lane that I'm in nonprofit communications, it is so in line to give me the skills that I need to grow in my career. So I would encourage you to see what else is out there that you might not be aware of. So thanks for that plug, Joe. Now we're going to hand it over to Dennis. We're very fortunate to have Dennis not only be a member of our chapter as an ACFRE, but he is one of two, if I'm not correct, Dennis, in the state. Is that right? You and Peggy Calhoun?
2.
Yeah, so there's only 2 ACFREs in the state of Florida, and there's less than 130 in the entire world. Is that, are we more than 130 yet?
No,
Right.
that's as many as there are.
Right. So I mean, we're talking like distinction that has certainly set, you know, someone apart. So Dennis, if you want to take a few minutes and talk about, you know, what the ACFRE is and why you wanted to, you know, focus your career so much more forward because of that.
Cool. Thanks, Josh. Well, I've been in NSFRE, well, AFP now, AFP for a lot of years, probably. I think my membership is more than 40 years old, and I've been in the profession almost 50 years. I was actively involved, actually, in the beginning of CFRE, and was part of 6 people. There were 6 of us that really created the ACFRE, wrote the test, put it together. And the ACFRE, as you may or may not know, functions kind of like a PhD program. That's what it's premised on. So there were 6 of us that created the ACFRE, and I was one of the first 12 to sit for the exam with the first class. After that, NSFRE at that time, and AHD, which is the Association of Healthcare, was called Philanthropy then, decided that because they had their own certification program, as we did, that we should come together and create a universal CFRE, even though each organization would maintain its most advanced certification. In the case of AFP, that's the ACFRE. In the case of the Association of Healthcare Development, it is their fellows program. So you will see people who have the ACFRE may also have the fellowship, the fellow designation with them. And to be really honest with you, the rationalization for CFRE early on was because it was such a big concern in our profession that we were going to be licensed because everybody else had a licensure. So we as an organization decided that in order to avert that we ought to create some kind of certification that would in fact demonstrate that we monitor our own, that the people who received this certification had a wealth of experience, were qualified, that people could hire them, and know that they had the basic skills needed to function in the job that they had. The ACFRE then became the effort by, again at that time, NSFRE, to really create the terminal degree, to create a small group of people who could be looked to be the leaders in the profession, and who had, although the requirements have changed now, who had experience. I think probably all of us who were in that first class, or maybe the first 3 or 4 classes, had probably 35 to 40 years in the business at that time, and had written books that were highly recognized in the community as being the leaders in the profession. So that's why I wasn't. And a result of all the work we did in 1996, I was recognized as the National Fundraising Executive of the Year. The other part, the other initial that I have associated with my name, I just got this year, and it's FAFP, which is a fellow of the Association Fundraising Professional, senior fellow, and there are only 15 of us in the profession that receive that. For me, it's obviously the recognition of a lifetime of work, and I'm humbled to have received that and have dedicated my life to this profession, and could think of nothing else that I would ever want to do.
Well, Dennis, we are so fortunate to have you join us today, and the experience they brought from the history of creating the ACFRE program. And it's unfortunate we weren't able to recognize you this year as part of this year's fellowship class in Baltimore, but I know that next year in Minneapolis at the AFP International Conference, we will certainly do that, and you can stand alongside your other fellows. A question that just came in from one of our attendees, Denise asked, what sort of time commitment is involved in each certification? And I'll just throw this out there, everyone, if someone wants to jump in.
I could talk about the ACFRE. The ACFRE is, when you begin the process, it'll take you at least a year to complete it, and it's designed to do that. It's designed to not only have the individual demonstrate their knowledge and skill and their accomplishments in the business. There's a test that goes along with it. There's a portfolio that has to be developed, and then there's an oral exam. Again, just like sitting for a PhD. That's the whole concept. So once you start this process, you have to be committed to finishing it, and it'll just take you a long time. It'll take at least a year to do that. But I'll tell you, it'll be probably the most rewarding experience you'll ever have.
Vicki, how about the CFRE and the CAP program?
Well, the CFRE is really accumulation of some of your experiences. It starts with an application that you begin filling out to make sure you have the qualifications, and then you can take a review course. I don't even know if I know our local chapter has offered that CFR reviews occasionally. I don't know if CFRE is now offering that virtually, which would be a great opportunity. If you're thinking about doing the CFRE, now might be the time. You might be able to do some of that, the course virtually. I didn't take the course, the review course. It's really a review course. I felt like I had amassed a lot of experience, and I did study for it quite a while, but I did not do the review course. But I think that would be helpful if you're interested in doing that. So it can take probably up to a year to get your application finished and you go through your course and take your test. I believe there is a time limit between when you actually submit your application and take the test. I want to say that's within 3 months. But the CFRE website has all that outlined, as well as a link to the application. The CAP program takes a year. You can take longer if you want it to. It's a series of 3 courses that you take in succession, in a certain succession, and then after each course, I think, I'm not sure how many lectures are a part of each course. It may be 12 to 15 lectures. So every week, or if you want to accelerate, you can. You listen to the lectures. The lecture is an hour, hour and a half. There's a lot of reading. And then at the end of the course, you take an exam at a testing center. And it's not easy. They're not easy exams, but you make it through. It's, again, as Dennis said, you will not regret doing this. It's just a wonderful way, especially if you've been working in development for a long time and you have some, had some experience with plan giving, us some experience advising donors, but it really puts it all together and really gives you the feeling that you've got a nice amount of knowledge amassed in those subjects.
Thanks, Vicki. Joe, how about the GPC certification?
Sure. GPC certification, again, just like Vicki said with the CFRE, the GPC, you do have a requirement, first of all, for the accumulation of experience, the minimum of 3 years if you have a degree, a minimum of 5 years if you do not have a degree. And it is a generalist exam, so a lot of grant professionals are in a niche, and so we do recommend studying. I did not study. There were not a lot of opportunities for that. That's one of the reasons why I developed Smarty Grants and the Grant Professionals course. It is recognized by the Grant Professional Certification Institute. We are the only provider that has the full CEUs. Our full course is recognized, and you get 40 CEUs for that course. The other part of it is that we created the community. We have study groups, and we have a community that is very networked, and people have a lifetime membership. So we have a GPC kind of group that lifts others up and helps them through. We do have the GPA, the Grant Professionals Association, also has study groups that they kind of organize themselves organically through the GPA online community, and there are some study guides available. But again, being a generalist exam, as far as how long does it take, it depends. I've had people join the course. They have limited experience in grants. Maybe they work for one organization, it's a small nonprofit, and they want to learn more about higher education grants, research grants, government grants, and so they join the program and are there for maybe, we've had a couple that have joined and had a 3-year goal and were able to take the exam within 3 years. Others have joined and they're through everything in 8 weeks because they have that experience, but they want a refresher. They want to make sure that any gaps that they have in their experience or education or any updates that have happened that they may have missed, that they have that information and they feel good going forward. So again, depends on your experience and depends on the competencies that you've already built and your confidence too.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Uh, Joe, I get approached all the time from nonprofit organizations needing grant writing help. And we have some great people in our community who write grants, but they always seem to be just full to the brim or overflowing with work. I think a lot of nonprofits are outsourcing that work now. So is there a resource through some of these organizations, or the organization you're speaking of that you have the certification through, for people to reach out to see if they're even, they don't have to be in their hometown. They could be anywhere in the United States and help an organization write a grant?
Absolutely. And that's a really good point. And luckily, maybe that's one of the silver linings here with COVID and people working at home, that nonprofits are beginning to realize that you don't need to have somebody in your backyard. There are a lot of resources that you can use online, and there are grant professionals that can help you from all walks of life. We do have the Grant Professionals Association has a list, a consultant list. We do recommend those of us that are GPCs, especially that you look for that GPC. We also recommend that organizations that hire grant professionals look for that GPC or provide resources to get the GPC. But again, the Grant Professionals Association does have a consultant list. They've recently updated their website, the consultant list. Each of the consultants needs to update their website, so their listing. So you might not find it to be as robust as it should be and will be over the coming months.
Another avenue of career growth, professional development is higher education. So going back 10 years, I got my master's degree in a field kind of like nonprofit management, but I was 20 years old at the time. What did I really know about nonprofit management? But after being in this field, I realized that I wanted to get additional education. I wanted to get textbook education on how to be a better fundraiser and a better nonprofit leader. And at the time, I knew I wasn't able to go back to school, be in a classroom. So I found I was searching specifically for online fundraising programs. And I found a program out of a little college in Massachusetts called Bay Path University. And it was for a program in strategic fundraising and philanthropy, where while I did not go through the full 2-year degree program, I went through the 1-year certification program. And what was fabulous is that now, in addition to this hands-on experience I've had, I now have textbook knowledge that I'm able to apply to best practices and in historical knowledge and all these things to make me a better fundraiser and make me a better nonprofit leader. One of the most important things is, especially when going through your CFRE, is you have to attain these, CEU credits. And that's what takes a lot of time, is to really track all that. Programs and attending things, events like this are one way that you can collect those credits. Going to conferences like Planet Philanthropy or AFP International Conference are great ways to get those credits. But that's, I think a lot of the time when we're talking about what time to get those certifications. Vicki, do you want to talk a little bit about the Lilly School?
I would love to. And I think in general, there's so many more programs out there now, and the opportunity to turn certification credits into college credits for secondary degrees, I think is really a cool thing that's happening in the space. So I will give a plug for the fundraising school and for the Indiana University Lilly Family School Philanthropy, both aligned very closely at IU. The fundraising school offers some certification programs. They keep coming up with new certification programs as there's demand in our fundraising community. You can take one course and get a certificate. You can take a series of courses and get certifications. I think they now have 3 or 4 different certifications. And then if you do pursue the certification, that can count for some college credit if you want to pursue a degree in fundraising. So the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy has a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD program in fundraising. That coursework is very theoretical and research-based. You all know a vast amount of research that comes out of IU. Their students actually do that research along with their very well-seasoned professors. So when you're taking a fundraising school class, much of that research is integrated in that coursework, but you have co-instructors, so they try to have somebody from the school that comes from a more academic or theoretical approach, and then a practitioner in the field that actually applying those concepts in real life on the job. I think that's what makes the coursework very special. So if you choose some certification coursework through the fundraising school or an advanced degree or even bachelor's degree through the Lilly School, you just get a very, very robust comprehensive best practices program.
And we just got a great resource that Charlotte had put into the chat here. Nonprofits First has partnered with MindEdge Online Learning, and now they're able to offer at your own self-paced courses that will not only make you a better nonprofit leader, but also can count towards CFRE credits for these sort of programs. So that's a really great opportunity as we are home now and we're looking, we all want to grow as a leader and we all want to become better professionals and, advance in our careers. This is one way to do it. And I have a question for all of our panelists. What are you doing yourself now that you are well-established professionals and you've really excelled in your careers? How are you pushing yourself to continue to grow as a leader? I'll go. I'm gonna call you out first. Go for it.
Who did you ask?
I'll let Dennis go
Yeah.
first.
Oh,
Yeah.
me. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I think I've been really dedicated from the beginning, actually, to really trying to come to grips with the philosophy of philanthropy. Early on, and talking about the Lilly School, early on when Bob Payton, along with another person, founded, it was really the first director of the School of Philanthropy there. NSFRE at that time had a course called, or a program called ELI, which was the Executive Leadership Institute, that was done at Indiana University. It was a week's course, and Bob Payton actually taught it. And from the very beginning, Payton's whole philosophy was that, philanthropy is the pursuance of humankind and the voluntary good. And for me, it was, set the tone for my whole career. So for my whole time in this business, I continue to try to come to grips with the fact of what that means, what the philosophy of philanthropy means. And for any of you who know his work, he always, in fact, spoke about and talked about the need to be able to integrate the how-tos of what we do as a business with the whys we do it. That was his basic premise. It wasn't just about learning how to raise money. It wasn't about major gifts. It wasn't about annual funds. But all of those things came from a very basic understanding of why we do philanthropy. And in fact, I think Josh knows this, but Jim Greenfield and I hope to be able to do a whole session at ICON next year on the philosophy of philanthropy and the impact that senior fundraising executives should have in embracing that on their communities and actually the world in general. And we hope to be able to do a workshop at Planet Philanthropy on that topic as well. And I just noticed today, actually, Vicki, I was looking at the website for the Lilly School, and they are in October starting a new course on philanthropy, understanding philanthropy, that is a throwback to what Payton used to teach at the very beginning. It uses, all of his memoirs and all of his papers, and they've created a whole program about it, one of which is online. So, that for me it is so important to our understanding what we do and to pursuing our field. And in fact, again, Vicki, I don't know if you know this, but the Lilly School has started this year, or maybe it's done in the past, but this year they created, it's called Perspectives on Philanthropy discussion series with a number of people. And yesterday, they're 1-hour Zoom meetings. Yesterday they had David Rubenstein, and he, he's founded, I'm trying to remember, he was co-founder of the Carlyle Group, and he's become known for what's called now patriotic philanthropy. He's one of the Bill Gates group that is, dedicated their great wealth to the betterment of humankind. And he really yesterday said a couple of things that I think that's so critical in what is happening today. In fact, he premised it this way. He said, they asked him, what is one of the learning experience for someone like you, who is a great philanthropist, who is committed to so many things? what is one of the learning experiences you've had with COVID-19? And he said, well, the most important thing that I've learned from COVID-19 is that for older people, people like me and many other, him and others, that life is fragile. And that because life is fragile, as philanthropists, we ought to not delay what we want to do because you never know what tomorrow might bring, which is an interesting phenomenon. So he was reflecting on the importance of being a philanthropist, also that this is the time, because you never know what tomorrow might bring, that if there are things that are important to you and you're capable of doing it, you ought to go ahead and do it. Because there may not be a tomorrow for you. That was one of his messages. The other message he sent was that philanthropy is not just about the other person or the other organization. Philanthropy is about the philanthropist, because he said, for me and for any great philanthropist, it makes me happy. So there's no time to wait to do that. It's a way of fulfilling our life's premise, what we want to do in life, and we're capable of doing it. We should do it now and not wait till the future. So there's a lot that's going on, but I think that for me, again, I think this is a time, and it's the reason that Jim and I put this session together. Actually, we began it before the whole insight. What's happened with COVID-19 is that we as a profession, for the most part, have forgotten our roots. AFP does not offer courses with few exceptions, in the philosophy of philanthropy. So senior leaders, people who in our profession ought to be setting the tone for what happens moving forward, many of us don't have a sense of what that means to begin with. We don't understand, or we haven't embraced the whys as we begin to further explore how to better do our jobs.
Fabulous, fabulous insight, Dennis. That was great. I really, really do appreciate that. Joe, how are you pushing yourself to advance yourself as a leader?
That's a really good question, because as I mentioned before, I rolled off the board of the Grant Professionals Association, and part of what I did this year is I did a year of no. I wanted to step back rather than jumping into another large leadership position, step back, invest in the people that I serve through Smarty Grants and other resources, and kind of look at how I can be a better leader rather than just go, 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 go. So I'm trying to model that for a lot of folks that I work with. That's been a little difficult. It's hard to slow down. COVID helped a little bit in that sense, so there wasn't as much travel, and I was able to do that. The other thing is, as far as my approach to leadership and what I believe in leadership and what I look for is I really am a firm believer in servant leadership. And so again, being able to step back and serve people better and look at my philosophy as well as the profession's philosophy and my why. So I do encourage people to look at their why. I look at your why are you in this profession? Why do you do what you do? What makes you feel like a leader? There are a lot of different styles of leadership. Find what works for you. Find where you feel like you can lead, whether, we work with a lot of folks that are introverts. They're shy. They're used to working alone in a quiet space. And the idea of being a leader and out there and on a stage isn't for them. But they don't think so. But we do work with them. So helping to develop leaders, I think, is the best way that I can serve right now as a leader and help build my leadership skills too. So, a lot of times we learn from teaching. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Fabulous. All right, Miss Vicki, bring it home.
Well, someone early in my career said the way for excellent career growth is to take or teach a class every 3 years. I don't know if anybody says that anymore. That's kind of an old-fashioned saying, but I took that to heart. And when I say take or teach a course, going to conferences are great, and listening to webinars, great, all good things to share information, but committing yourself to a certification or a 3-day course or even a degree program is really what I'm talking about. So I did a lot of that early in my career. I've sought out certifications. I felt like they were important to my career. But teaching to me, is kind of, as Joe said, and Dennis, we all now are teachers of fundraising and grant writing and, our profession. And so when I became a faculty member at the fundraising school at Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, I really felt like that was one of the best things I did for my career, because I learn new things every time I teach, because I'm teaching people that are doing the work, and they're learning new things, and they're discovering new practices in our field. So even though we think we're imparting the wisdom on the people that are taking the class, I really think I learn as much as they do from the coursework I teach.
Fabulous, fabulous. So, this has been such a great panel, and we're very fortunate to have such experts. One final question, and then we're going to wrap it up. What are you reading right now? What books, what online blogs, what is something that right now that you're home that you're reading, whether for fun or for professional growth? And we'll go to Joe first on this one.
Great. As I said, burnout was something that we were all dealing with. It again, as Vicki mentioned, grant professionals are in high demand. They were in high demand before. Now with COVID and all the resources out there, we're finding that people are at their max and beyond. And so really looking at how to deal with burnout, how to deal with self-care. So we've been reading The Happy Healthy Nonprofit. We actually have a grant professional book club, and so we do read a lot of these types of books that help us professionally, but also help our organizations and help ourselves. So a lot of self-care. We're looking at, I have a whole list of things that I could recommend for just specifically kind of around grants and storytelling. We've gone through all of those, and I'm going through those with the course folks. But I will say that I think that one is a great one to be reading right now and to be thinking about within your organization.
All right, Miss Vicki, what about you?
So a couple things I'll mention. I just finished Leaders Eat Last, one of Simon Sinek's books, which I really, really enjoyed. I enjoy his writing on leadership. I've started a book called The Color of Law, really trying to educate myself on issues around racial equity. And I just laugh because you asked about books. If you don't have this book, this is like the thing, this is my go-to book, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. This is Hank Russo, the founder of Fundraising School, Gene Temple, who Dennis knows very well and has worked with over his career. Just early thought leaders in our industry. I'm expecting Dennis Stefanacci to be writing the next edition of this, because I just have the second edition, and I know there are further editions. But it's not a book that you sit down and read, but it's just, well, I've given it away 3 times, and I keep ordering because I give my copy away, because anytime you have a question about fundraising, you can probably find an answer in that book.
And that book was one of the textbooks for my certificate course.
Of course, yeah.
So that is hands down one of the best fundraising books that I've had as part of my library. All right, let's finish it out.
Actually, Hank's book is on the reading list for both the CFRE and the ACFRE. And the one that's on the reading list for the ACFRE is it's the 4th edition that was edited by Gene and Dwight Burlingame. I think that's the most recent one that's out. What I've been spending my time on is really, because of what Jim and I are going to do together, is really going back and reviewing a lot of the stuff that I have that has to do with Bob Pate and his whole philosophy of philanthropy as we try to reinvent ourselves in this new age. There are also, in addition to Hank's book, there are, if one's interested in capital campaign, probably the best book that's ever been written in that area is by Kent Dove on capital campaigns. He's on many of the reading lists as well. Simone Joyer, who I think probably many of you know, is what she writes on strategic planning is as good as there is. So there are books like that that are available that are really the kind of books that you can never get away from. Like Vicki said, if if you ever need a refresher or you ever have a question, you go to that. Or Jim Greenfield has a number of books on annual funds, on record keeping. He's part of that. What's the new group that AFP has that evaluates statistics on an ongoing basis? It's called the Fundraising Experience or something like that. He's involved, but those are people who have given a great deal to the organization. You can always go back to, and again, I would like to encourage everybody to, this is the right time to go back and to think about what philanthropy really is. Just not even how it affects us, although it affects us in many different ways, but what its real purpose is. Because I think that's one of the keys to our profession and being successful at what we do.
Well, I want to say thank you to our panelists. I'm going to ask you if you could please email me those book suggestions afterwards, because I'd like to be able to share that with our attendees when we send out this recording. So I'll send you an email reminder. But this has been fabulous. I really appreciate not only the participation by our panelists, but we've had some great chat resources. I've copied a lot of that stuff off, so we'll be able to share those links and resell resources as well. Thank you once again to everyone joining. This is new ways for us to learn. We know it's not ideal, but just the fact that we've had people care enough about their own career growth in the nonprofit sector to join us today has been fabulous. We will continue again in July with a early July date to be determined on major gifts and how to start a major gifts program. And then at the end of the month, we'll be doing one on virtual events, and specifically virtual event sponsor recognition. I think it's something that, especially as we go into the fall and looking at our special events, and most likely we will not be in person, but we still know that sponsor dollars are, or I like to say partner dollars, are so important. How are we able to leverage those events with those partners when they're not going to be able to shake hands with attendees and hand out their water bottles and hand out their little swag at events? How can we use this virtual world and to better leverage those relationships? So thank you to everyone again for joining us. Yes, Dennis.
Josh, I have one. Could you share with us, not now, but maybe later on? I see there are a bunch of comments that have been made. Could you share if there's anything that we can help with or anything we can respond to personally? Can you share those with us? And
absolutely. I would be happy to do that. So I'm going to click stop on the recording now. We're going to leave this Zoom open, so if people want to turn back on their cameras and chat and network as we would normally do at a meeting, I'll do so. But thanks again to all our panelists, and we'll see you again next time.